There we go. Good. Shaun's message is one of possibility for the dreamers, the burned out professionals, the survivors, and anyone standing at the edge of change. This talk is not just inspiration, it's a call to action, to believe in your ability to rebuild, to reconnect with your own passions, and to create a life that feels wildly, authentically yours. And Shaun, I don't even need the presentation. I'm all motivated now and inspired just from that. But I'm going to turn this over to you. Folks, if you have questions for Shaun, go ahead and put them in the chat. And maybe at the end, we can get back to your questions then. Does that sound good?
Perfect. Sounds good to me.
Take it away.
Awesome. Well, good evening, everybody. This is a unique and different setting for me, as I haven't done a webinar just yet. So Angie and I were talking before just about the last 2 hours figuring out the different technologies. And I've already had one that just failed on me, which is one of my big lights. So, but first of all, I'm just going to share my screen here. And it starts with a short little video here, but just give me one moment. Oh, whoops.
Gotta love technology.
Good Lord. There we go. That's what I wanted. All right.
Yeah, looks good.
Perfect. So first and foremost, welcome to Arctic Frontiers, life at the edge of a changing world. I always like to get started off with a little video. I use it for everything. It's a promo for my documentary that I'm currently filming. It is a promo for the expeditions that I guide up to Churchill. But it also kind of shows the wildlife and the journey a little bit. And then we'll have a little chit chat about who I am and where I come from. I'll tell you a little bit about Churchill and the amazing apex predator of the polar bear, and along with other wildlife that I've seen. As well, I didn't get to put it in time into this one, but maybe that'll be a follow-up. Maybe in a year or two, we can do another one where this summer I went back up to Churchill and I captured a bunch of the flora and the birds, because the birds were still up there in Churchill at the time. And it's quite incredible to see the different amount of birds that you can, I think there's something like 250 species that breed up there. So anyhow, without further ado, we will give me 1 second. It's doing it again, Angie.
Yeah, we had video, but no sound there.
Yep. Where are you? See, this is the joys, folks.
It was working before.
It was working before.
I'll vouch for it.
That figures. Oh,
that's okay. We hate to see that again.
Tell me if you can hear this. No, you definitely can't.
Nope. Nope. Oh, turn again.
That's gonna bug me. Oh well, I'm gonna show you the video. There's no sound, so bear with me with that.
You can talk us through it.
Yeah. One of the things, actually, it just showed the train heading up to Churchill is, if anybody ever goes, whether it's on their own with a different organization, or if you were to come with me, Typically, when I do expeditions up there, we fly. But one of the coolest experiences is actually taking the train up to Churchill. It's 48 hours, and you get to meet a lot of the locals. You get to see a lot of folks on the way up there, and it really, really um, made for an interesting kind of beginning and ending to the trip. But yeah, it's just a really, really incredible way to get up there. So that's kind of the intro. Let me go to the next slide and we'll talk a little bit about me. So the name of my business is Omi Nurse Photography. And anybody from the East Coast knows Omi Nerves is a saying there, typically used in the form of Omi Nerves, you got me drove made. You would say that to your wife or your spouse, or your husband. But when I was coming up with a name for the business, I thought of that, and at the beginning, it was kind of like, "Ugh, is that really going to be a good one?" But then I started to tie it to, you know, whether you're out birding, whether you're out shooting photography, whether you're out shooting wildlife or nature, your nerves can either get drove or it can be really amazing. For example, the first time you see that life or bird that you've been looking for, or in some cases, like this first trip last fall, up to the edge of the Arctic, seeing a polar bear for the first time, and so that's where Omi nerves came from. I was born and raised in Sarnia, Ontario, but anybody who knows me knows full well that I am a Newfoundlander. And my claim to Newfoundland is my dad is from there. He was born and raised there. Um, we have property there. I've spent every summer from as young as I can remember all the way up through till about, I think 19 or 20. Every summer I would go there for anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, and didn't really know Ontario in the summer. It was more just at home in Newfoundland. But the going joke is in 1981, December 23rd, mom and dad got married and they headed off to Newfoundland for their honeymoon. When they came back, they found out that I was coming along. So I was conceived in Newfoundland. So my seed started there and my life started in Newfoundland. So I consider myself as much a Newfoundlander as dad is. Um, Married my best friend, Tara, in 2006, met her in 2003. We have now been happily married for 19 years. Um, we have a son who is now actually 14. I need to update that. And a daughter, Callie, who is 10, and the most beloved in our entire family, which is Nash. Nash is, I believe, turning 7 this coming February, and he is our 4 pod child. We rescued him from Texas by way of Tennessee and Mississauga. Um, I am an international award winning professional photographer. Aside from photography, my passions include music and nature. Um, I'm going to go into just a little bit about Churchill because that's a big part of my Arctic presentation. But before I do, um, there are a couple of things that I want to touch on that Angie mentioned at the beginning, and that is at a young age, I suffered from sexual assault. I was bullied. I had a lot of things going on as a child, and where I grew up on the outskirts of Sarnia, I spent a lot of time, back in the day with a BB gun and a David Bowie knife or Daniel Boone knife. And then I had my coonskin hat and I used to pretend I was Davy Crockett. And so, living on about 10 acres, nature became kind of that therapy. And I wouldn't say at that time that I knew that it was therapy. But looking back now at the age of 43, I can see all of the time that I spent out on the trails, just on my own, out in nature and observing things, right? Even though I really didn't realize I was seeing and hearing the birds and the different wildlife, but I think it was just kind of mentally preparing me for what I was going to go through throughout my childhood, teenage years, and into my adult life. Um, I was diagnosed with ADD at about 10, coming to find out years later, actually about 5 or 6 years ago, that they think I was misdiagnosed and that it was anxiety, and also was diagnosed with mild depression. And the irony is, in life, people look at, the gram, they look at Instagram, they look at Facebook, and they think, they see people in this light. They see a guy jet setting all over the world, 30 countries. I hit my 30th country just before COVID. In the last 12 months, I've been up to the Arctic 3 times. And people tend to have this view of, you've got it all together, and, you're living your dream. And yes and no. I am living my dream now. As she mentioned, I spent 15 years in the finance industry, and over the last 5 or 6 years, I started to get out a lot more with my camera. And obviously, in Southwestern Ontario, the only thing that you can really shoot down here in Sarnia, Lambton County, and in Corunna is birds primarily. We've got deer, raccoons, skunks, different things like that, weasels, that you can get a look at and shoot. But really, the big thing was birds. And so I found myself out quite a bit with my camera, and just kind of dreaming and just thinking, like, I'm just tired of, I make good money, but every day, you clock in, you clock out. And I always used to say, when I was in the business, ask 100 people in the room, including myself, who here likes finance and insurance, and my hand wouldn't go up either. So um, it was just it built a life for me that I have now. But my true passion and my true heart was getting involved more, capturing moments, creating memories. That's my motto with OMNP, Omi Photography. And so that's where I started to really dream. And even as a young kid, I'd really thought about, I want to go to the Arctic. Polar bears were such a big draw, but just the way of life, and how different things are up there in the ecosystems. And so that's what ultimately led me to Churchill and the area. Um, I'll quickly go into Churchill. Churchill, small little place up in northern Manitoba. It's kind of like on a shelf, where one of the reasons people always say, why Churchill? Why do polar bears go to Churchill? There's a little shelf there that basically juts out, and where the Churchill River comes out, the way the tides work and the way the currents work, it basically pushes a little bit of that fresh water out, and it kind of takes to the coast, and it starts to freeze first. And so the polar bears migrate to Churchill because that's where it freezes first in the entirety of Hudson Bay / James Bay. And so it's a really unique place. You've got the marine ecosystem, um, which beluga whales in the summertime. And then you've got the polar bears now, because we have such a situation with the ice melting, um, where you've got bears even in the summer. I was up there in August and saw 10 different polar bears. So that's kind of a concern. But it is also got the edge of the boreal forest, and then it also has the Arctic tundra. And so you got these three ecosystems that kind of collide into this kaleidoscope of awesomeness, from big game to like moose, caribou. It's the only place on the planet, I think it was within the last 5 6 years, where they found um, grizzly bear or brown bear dens. So now in Churchill, they have to not only worry about black bears, and polar bears, but now they have brown bears. So they have the trifecta. They have all three bears up there, along with the marine life, along with the foxes. They have four, I believe, at least four different variations of fox. They've got the silver fox, the cross fox, the Arctic fox, and the red fox, which is just a really neat thing to get to see all of these different versions of wildlife. And then, as I said at the beginning, it is a huge place at the end of May, June, where you get somewhere between the range of, and don't quote me, but I think it's between 200 and 300. So I always use the safe 250, different species of birds, from shorebirds to songbirds to everything in between. And so it's just a really, really unique place. This is the port of Churchill. If you've been paying attention to the news, you might have heard a little bit about that recently. Just a kind of a 50-50 right now. They need the economic boost, but at what cost? They're talking about icebreakers, and we already have enough issues with polar bears not having enough ice. And this is kind of looking out to Cape Mary, which is just to the right of the port, which is at the left there, and the Hudson Bay in behind. And this is Churchill. This is the entirety of Churchill right there. Behind this photo, we've got about another little tiny community called the Flats. But Churchill, Manitoba, it's the gateway to the Arctic. It's the polar bear capital of the world. It sits on the Hudson Bay, which is the Arctic Ocean. And I'm very big on saying that. My wife always laughs at me because she's like, it's Hudson Bay. And I'm like, no, it's Arctic waters. So it's the Arctic Ocean. It's in northern Manitoba. The climate there, subarctic. So technically the Arctic, but it is in a subarctic environment. Cold winters, very short summers. Hudson Bay freezes sometime between November and then lasts until about June, give or take some days on the edge there. There's a huge cultural and historical context there, both good and bad. Some folks may or may not know about the Sae-Sae-Dene. All of my expeditions that I take up all show about the Indigenous community that's up there. So that's a big thing for me in making sure that I talk about the Indigenous community. It was a gathering place for them. The fur trading post, Hudson Bay Company, originated up there, and it's a huge hub for Arctic research and tourism. And I just want to take a quick peek here. Make sure. Okay. And you can cut in, Angie, and let me know if anybody does ask a question. And I do want to let everybody know now, anytime you have a question about anything, let me know. Angie can stop me and we can chat about it. Kind of spoke about the ecosystems and the wildlife up there. Again, it sits at the crossroad of three remarkable ecosystems. There's not many places like it where you've got that tundra and the marine and the boreal forest kind of coming together and providing for such an incredible explosion of wildlife across the board. One of the biggest impacts right now up in Churchill and in the Arctic, and even felt as far south as where we are. We've all seen flooding in Windsor, flooding in southwestern Ontario and all over Ontario and across the country. One of the reasons I went up to the Arctic was I wanted to see in a tangible way what a warming climate meant, what it looked like. And it's truly hard to kind of put your finger on it unless you go and see. And one of the things that I learned right out the gate, I was there last year, October, November, and Hudson Bay wasn't 100% frozen until January of 2025. It used to be completely frozen by November, about 20 or 30 years ago. So it's about an extra month and a half, give or take. And then last year, 2024, sorry, they were off the ice. I think it was in August, which was a really good year. But 9 times out of 10, the sea ice is melting sometime in June or July. So how does that impact? What is the global impact of melting sea ice? It doesn't just affect the northern parts. When we have melting sea ice across the Arctic melt, we're talking about ocean rise which is lake rise and river rise, by a few inches. And that displaces close to 1 billion people, if I'm not mistaken, when you look at all the coastal areas around the world. Uh, so it's a big deal to have a focus on what is happening with the sea ice. And people kind of think, well, polar bears, if they go extinct, how does that affect me? Well, if polar bears go extinct, that means that they aren't able to get on the ice. And if there's no ice, then the waters have risen, and it's affecting the world, and the global impact can be seen from birds to microorganisms to the apex predator, which is the polar bear. Um, Connection. Uh, when I sit back and I look at what I got to do over the last year, um, I always say this with utmost respect. My family, my dad's from Newfoundland, grew up and spent most of my life living in the south end of Sarnia, and my parents were janitors for 21 years. And growing up, I took a lot of heat for that, right? Your parents are janitors, and how people can be and how society can be. And I look back and I just think I used to be so, I never thought I would amount to anything. And a lot of that came because I had people say that to me throughout my life. And I'll never forget the first time that I seen my very first polar bear last October. And it was my first, and I saw the bear. And I think later on we'll see if I think I have the video on here, but um, I was on an adrenaline rush for about a half hour. And then afterwards, I was volunteering in the kitchen at the Churchill Northern Study Center. And everything kind of came crashing, right? Because the adrenaline after seeing the bear. And I sat down and I just bawled my eyes out, because it was one of those moments where I could actually sit back and go, wow, after everything I've been through in my life, and everybody's got a story. Nobody's story is greater or less than. But for me, my story is my story. And I just kind of took that moment and went, I'm in the subarctic of Canada, and I just seen the world's largest apex predator, the polar bear, in its natural habitat. And how did I get here? How did I end up here? And so I spent a lot of time there, and over the last few months, just kind of reflecting on um, the opportunities that I've been given because of my love for photography. And ironically, we're talking to OFO here. Birds were kind of the very first thing. I mean, I've been shooting for years and doing travel stuff, but never really on a real serious effort like I have the last, let's say, 10 years. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the biggest kind of subject that I had in this area was birds. So I'm really grateful for that. And also being up there, the indigenous community, learning from them, looking at them, and just understanding how they used to wander with the caribou back in the day before, the government of Manitoba and Canada came in, and just their connection to the land and their connection to the wildlife, the birds, the animals, and the sea. And then, kind of intertwining all of that together with the role of photography. And I started out as a photographer. Then I became kind of a, a birder photographer. And then over the last 2 or 3 years, I've really been evolving into a conservational photographer, that tries to do a lot more storytelling with the images that I capture. And I think the reason for that is it's so easy to just take a picture and put it on Instagram or Facebook or share it. But for me, what does that image say? What is in that? What story can I take from that image and pass on? And just hearing other people's takes on what the images that I have captured share with them has been really cool. Um, Call to action when it comes to a warming climate. We individually and collectively have a responsibility. And one of the things that I'm trying to do with this talk and the other talks that I do in the tour that I'm on, any of the work that I'm a part of, is to shine a spotlight on a warming climate, shine a spotlight on mental health, shine a spotlight on creative outlets and mental health, right? So photography for me quite literally saved my life. And I don't know if I would be here today if I didn't have the ability to get out in nature and use the camera as my tool to find healing. Um, Arctic Area Protection, Polar Bears International. If you haven't heard of them, look them up. They're an amazing organization. Um, they do a lot of work up in Churchill and the other 13 Canadian polar bear populations. There are 19 total in the world of polar bear subpopulations. Canada has the largest one and the polar bear capital of the world, which is Churchill, Manitoba. The CNSC, which is the Churchill Northern Studies Center, that's who I partnered with when I was there. They were an incredible. Just check and see what we got here. Okay, yep. They were an incredible organization that houses up to 89 people. And they have an incredible research facility, and they have researchers and scientists coming from all over the planet to do their research and science there. uh, I think it's Jim Roth, I believe is his name. He's been doing an Arctic fox study for, I want to say, 40 years up there. And there have been other different aspects of research, such as polar bear research, that has been done up there. And then also, they have connections with Svalbard, Norway, which is another large population for or subpopulation for polar bears. But as individuals as well, what can we do? Because sea ice, does it really affect our day to day? Polar bears going extinct, does it really affect our day to day? The answer is obviously yes and no. But individually, we can share stories like I'm doing. Um, if we can afford it or we have the ability to go up to places like Churchill and see the Arctic and see the different ecosystems and see polar bears, learn about them, and then share that with other people. And then obviously the age old volunteer your time and donate funds to organizations and people that are involved in getting the calls to action and spreading awareness and research and science, what have you. So this is kind of the end of the Churchill portion. I do mention here that if anybody is interested in heading up to on an expedition with me, I do have dates October 20th to 26th of next year. 6 spots open. I just got back. What are we? Wednesday. So not this past Sunday that just occurred, but the Sunday before. I got back from 9 days with a group, 7 days and 6 nights up in Churchill. We saw 61 bears. Saw quite a few different birds. We saw obviously ptarmigan, the tundra chicken as they call it, and snow buntings. Lots. We were talking earlier before we got started here about the snow buntings, and I'm really excited to see a snow bunting down here this season because I got to see them way up in the Arctic, and then now I get to see them down here. So I've seen them up there in the summertime, kind of when they were migrating back in, and I seen them 2 weeks ago up there, and now I get to see them down here, and they're one of my favorite birds. So, anyways, if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. Get my information. I'm all over social media, my website, and whatnot, and love to have you come. So, as I wrap up, we're going to go into a little section here, and I just want to check on time too. That's another thing too, Angie. Just I think we're going till about 8. But
Yep.
anytime as we get into this next section where we're going through the different photos, please feel free to ask questions. And if I know the answer, I will answer. But as I wrap things up, I always try to use this opportunity to say everything that I've shown you so far, and obviously we're limited to time. If you ever have the opportunity to come out to one of my full shows, it's about 90 minutes plus an extra, 15 to a half hour with questions. But I always take the opportunity to say even if it's just one thing that we've said so far, and by the end, um, I hope to inspire you. I'm 43. I'm just starting over in my life, and like Angie read, I gave up a six-figure income because I just my mental health mattered more, and I had to take some time off just for me. Um, and I've spent the last year and a half really focused on actually taking time for myself, not building a business for somebody, not um, even though I'm married and I have kids, but really focusing on actual therapy and getting outside as much as I can, birding, shooting photographs, getting out there. And I um, it's really helped my life in a tremendous way. 4 or 5 years ago, I was driving down River Road, and I've never, and this is a heavy topic here for a second, but I've never actually had the thought of wanting to die. But it was one of those moments I would never act on. But I'm driving down the road. I'm like, man, just driving in that river, just get away from it all, and away we go. And it was that moment where talking with my wife and my therapist, where we started to come up with a plan um, that would work for me. And one of the things that I do now, believe it or not, if I'm upset or if I'm not having a good day, the very first thing I do is I say to my wife, I got to go. And I take my camera, I head out to the nearest park that I can get to. And it's crazy how, within 5 minutes, I'm at Dow Wetlands here in Lambton County, here just north of Corunna. And I'm down the path just a little bit, and I see a robin, and I'm trying to shoot a robin. I've got 10,000 images of robins. I don't need another one. But as a photographer and a birder, um, I get instantly engrossed in it. And then about 5 minutes later, I notice myself smiling. And I go from this either anger or depressive state to completely alive and happy. And then I can go back after a half hour or 4 hours, and I can be that better husband, that better father, that better friend, son, brother. um, and so that's one of the things that I really want people to take away from this particular talk, is to be inspired, to spread awareness. Conservation, mental health, they're two big topics that I will, people always say, what's your legacy? And I hope when I die that people say that guy gave a darn about, the environment, about nature, and about mental health. And my challenge to everybody is, when you have the opportunity to speak to people about your personal journey, whether it be mental health, um, about your personal journey when it comes to conservation, what nature means to you. Um, Spread awareness about all of these things. The biggest message that I share everywhere I go, whether it's to thousands of people or uh, online folks or a group of 100, doesn't matter, is chase your dreams. And I am such a cliche because I've heard that in so many talks throughout my life. Chase your dreams. You can have your dreams, and you just sit back and think that's never going to happen to me. And it wasn't until a big brother, big sister vendor show last spring, when I was preparing to go on my very first, actually not last spring, spring of 2024. Um, I was preparing to go on my first expedition up to the Arctic, and she was talking about the trip with her, and she went to walk away, and she said, "It's pretty special. You're living your dream." And then she walked away, and I was like, yeah, I'm living my dream. And it was about a half hour later that it kind of just hit me. And I was like, dang, I really am living out not a dream life, but I am living out a dream that I've always had, which is to go to the Arctic and to pursue a life or profession in photography, nature, wildlife. And so chase your dreams, and it doesn't matter how old you are. The group that I just had with me up in Churchill, 83-year-old man was with me, and I think he's had something like 2 or 3 strokes, a heart attack. I mean, just, but didn't care. 10 years ago, he went to Africa. That was a big bucket list. And he saw me speak at the Judith and Norman Alex Art Gallery in Sarnia and came up to me afterwards and he said, I'm going. I don't care how much it costs. What do I do? What do I got to do? I want to sign up. It's a dream and I want to go. Um, Another couple were 82 and 75 and 58 and mid 50s. So it was you're never too old to chase your dreams. And that is my biggest, biggest thing that I can recommend to anybody and that I hope inspires each and every one of you. It doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your status in life, it doesn't matter who you were before, who you are today, or who you're going to be. Chase your dreams. That is the by far biggest thing that I hope you all leave with today. And I will take a stop there and see if anyone has any questions at this time. Because we're going to head into images and videos from a couple of my trips so far, which is always the fun part because let's be real, people like to hear people talk, but they really want to see the wildlife, see the different things that we've captured. So
All right, show us.
let's go. So this here is the Churchill Northern Study Center. I partnered with them for my first two trips up. What's cool about this building is it's actually out on the wildlife management area, which is a designated area up in Churchill, I think District 23, where basically it's kind of like a preserve, not what do they call them? Safari, not a safari, the like a park that you can go to and it's all protected. And so they have this building out there, and this is where all the scientists and researchers go. Um, it is a silver LEED certified building, really, really cool building the way it was made. Things that we don't have to think about where we are. I don't know if you can notice at the bottom there, it basically is built 6 feet off the ground. One of the reasons is so that the excruciating winds can go underneath the building and around the building because it gets quite cold there in January, February. Then they have bars across the front, and that is for obvious reasons. Polar bears, on average, are about 10 feet tall and about 1,000 pounds, give or take. And they have a lot. Today alone, I was one of my friends that's up there right now. She's guiding a couple of trips. And right where that van is on the bottom right side of the screen, great big male was walking across that parking lot today. So it's pretty wild. And here's just kind of the back of it. They have a full gallery kitchen. They have, like I said, it's a dorm kind of styled bunk bed, sleeps up to 89 people. And right behind where this video is right now, you can't see it, but there's propane tanks. And I was right there, not at the dock, but on that little deck there, the smaller one. And that's when I came out that door to get a breath of fresh air. And right by those propane tanks that just went by, I was about 40 feet away from my first polar bear. And that was the first time I seen it. The end cap of that building, there was a great big square blue with a bird on it. One of the cool things about this building is that is a solar panel. Now, I don't know about you, but I wasn't aware there were other versions of solar panels. And that is a different type of solar panel where the wind comes through and it heats the wind. And that is partly how they heat this building. They spend more money on feeding people in this building than they do heating it. And remember, 9 months out of the year, it's pretty darn cold. So that's just a unique building in and of itself. On the top is the Aurora Dome. So if you're not crazy like me and you want to go watch the aurora while it's out, you just go up that little windy staircase, you sit at the top of that, and you have a 360 view of the aurora. I tend to be out on that upper deck, freezing cold, because I've got 14 cameras set up. Really, really cool thing about polar bears and Churchill and wildlife in general up there. There's about 872 people, give or take. And depending on who you talk to, there's quite a quite a skew in the number of polar bears. I know that I believe it's Polar Bears International says there's somewhere around 600 or 700 polar bears there right now. I've heard other organizations say 8 to 9, and other ones say about 1,000. But let's just say it's around that 800 mark. It's about one polar bear to every human being. Kind of crazy when you stop and think about it. How do you cohabitate with the world's largest predator? What you're seeing right there in that video is probably one of the biggest reasons why it's possible. So the building to the right is called Polar Bear Jail, or the bear holding facility. And basically, if they have a bear that's kind of a nuisance bear, keeps coming into town or keeps going to the garbage dump, they'll dart it and they'll put it in Polar Bear Jail for 30 days, right? And they'll kind of keep it away to kind of decentralize it to humans. And then after those 30 days, they'll hook it up in this net here, and they'll fly it about anywhere from, I think, like 60 kilometers to 200 kilometers north, closer to where the ice might be at that time. And then they release it back into the wild. And this is one of it's called the Polar Bear Alert Program. And because of that program, I think it's one of the major reasons that's why there's only been the last known attack. I think it was 2014. I think her name was Erin Green. She was attacked, and then an elderly gentleman came out and tried to beat the bear off with a shovel, and it worked. It got the bear off of her, but then it dragged him down the street. And then someone else came along and saved his life, and they both lived to tell the story. But that's probably, I think it was a decade or two before that, before the next attack. So, you're talking attack in the last 40 years, 30, 40 years is not bad, all things considered, one bear to every human. And this actually, the situation here that you saw was a mom and a cub. And so what they did is they tried hoisting the two of them up, and they couldn't. It was too heavy for the helicopter. So they lowered it back down, let mom out, took the cub up, came back, got mom, and flew her up, and they were reunited just fine. In the birding world, we talk often about ethical bird watching and ethical photography. And this is one of those moments. I had a little camera out the sunroof with the sunroof closed. We had been watching these two spar for about 45 minutes, literally 20 feet away from the vehicle. And this here kind of path that we're on is called Polar Bear Alley. If you're there during bear season, nothing's guaranteed, but you're almost guaranteed to always see a polar bear in Polar Bear Alley. And so we were going to try to kind of sneak past there and go down the alley, because we spent enough time with these guys and we don't want to be sitting on bears too long. As you see, we drove up, and big El Jefe there kind of got up, and we knew right away just from his body language, it was like, no, you need to go the other way. So we backed up, and it's about 1.5 kilometers of windy up and down dirt roads that we had to back out of, and all of that to protect the animal. The animals are there, and it's great for us to be able to see them and view them, whether it's birds, polar bears, doesn't matter. Take the opportunity to view these animals, but respect the habitat that they're in, and respect them. And that's how we maintain balance, I think, when it comes to nature and wildlife. These are called tundra buggies, and there's a section in Churchill where it's only accessible by tundra buggies. It's permitted by the government. There's 18 permits per day, so only 18 vehicles can be out on the tundra at any given point in time. You'll see the lines on these. Those mark feet. The very top line is 9 feet. At the beginning, you would have seen in that video that I played, the bear that jumped up and had his nose kind of at the top there. I didn't get the video just before that, where he actually jumped up, put his head over the rail, and then he put his paw over the rail. And as you can see, 9 feet, add another foot, maybe 2 feet, standing up with his hands extended, this bear was close to 11, 12 feet tall. He was about 1,200 pounds. And on the bear scale, they scale bears in Churchill, well, around the planet, on a 1 to 5. 1 is, really skinny. You can see their shoulders, you can see their rumps, the bone. A 5, what they say up in Churchill, fat is fit, and the people like to claim that as well. But it's you don't see any bone, you just see mass. And that polar bear was, they figured, around a 4. Very big bear. These are actually manufactured. I think there's one thing that they send out of Churchill, but they're basically built right there in Churchill, which is really cool. It's the only place on the planet that has these vehicles, Tundra buggies. They're slightly different than the ones, I believe, that are out on the ice field in Alberta. Those tires are 5 feet high. So polar bears at about this time, happening right now up in Churchill, they start to do this. And scientifically, research and scientists have no idea why they spar, why they do this. The obvious kind of theories are like a dog, right? They're playing together. They're kind of testing each other's strength, because in the spring, that's when mating season is for polar bears, and that's when they fight to the death for a mate. So, but they never hurt each other. You'll see them sink their mouths right over their necks or their heads, but they don't bite. So it's a really cool, and polar bears don't make very much noise, if any at all. And so watching them, I have a video that I haven't actually released yet, but I got my professional mic out, and all you can hear is the howling of the wind and the thud as their bodies hit each other when they're sparring. There's no growling, there's no hissing, it's just thuds of bodies hitting each other. So it's a pretty incredible thing to see. Another great thing, so the males are the only ones that spar. Females don't. But a female bear, mama bear, when we talk about as humans, mama bears, when I was just up there 2 weeks ago, there was a mom and 2 cubs that had miraculously got a seal. It was a bearded seal, and normally they don't get seals until they're out on the ice. But they were feeding on this seal, and so obviously other bears started to come in. And watching mom protect her cubs against other male bears, and the way the male bears would just kind of they almost lower their head, almost in respect, because they know not to mess with a mama polar bear. Polar bears have black skin, and their hair is such a unique, it kind of helps insulate them. And I don't know the scientific, because I'm not a scientist, but there's some real cool things in your own time, like look up about polar bear hair and how it works. It's a really unique kind of thing to them. I gotta go back because these guys come in droves. There are so many of them, and I think we get some in Northern Ontario, and I know we get them in Newfoundland. But it was cool this year. I haven't adjusted it yet, but I have photos of them in the summer and then photos of them in the winter, and they basically, sorry, I had to get a piece of wire here. But basically, they go from completely brown to snow white, where polar bears are not white, contrary to popular belief. They are actually more like I say like a creamy beige, and some you'll see them depending on what time of the year. It's almost like a urine yellow. But these guys are extremely white. Super cool to see, and really funny to see them when you are out walking around. You come up on them and they just kind of freeze, and they think you don't see them, and you can almost go up to them and kind of poke them on the head until they fly off. That's kind of their mechanism. This here is a cross fox. Uh, cross fox, red fox, and silver fox are all red foxes. They just have a variation in the colors of the fur. The only different fox up there is the Arctic fox, which is becoming more and more rare. When you talk about a warming climate, the red foxes have been moving further north, and they're known to hunt the Arctic fox. So they will, and most people don't know, but an Arctic fox is about the third the size of that guy right there on the screen. A lot smaller than your typical red fox variation. Really, really beautiful animal. And here's the red fox. They're, even this year, there's been some scientists and researchers that I was talking to. I didn't see any foxes when I was there in August, and I only saw one fox when I was there 2 weeks ago. And we're trying to figure out, well, I'm not me, but they're trying to figure out, they've come across a lot of carcasses in the wild. And we're kind of wondering, back in 2019, the Arctic fox up there was basically wiped out because of rabies. A few years ago, they had to call a whole bunch of Arctic foxes because someone up there was feeding Arctic foxes so that they would be around for their guests. And they got in a lot of trouble for that. But because one of them had rabies, they had to kill all of them because otherwise it just spreads. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, even in the bird world, right, we talk about don't bait animals, don't bait owls, don't bait wildlife in general, because when you do, it draws them all in, and then they get to spread around, whether it's, you know, the avian flu or in this case rabies. So another big aspect. I absolutely love foxes. I hunted for foxes for about 6 years, and whenever you hear me say the word shoot or hunt, it's photography. It's not an actual shoot or hunt. I spent 6 years dedicated to finding foxes. I had people sending me live dens, active dens. I found dens myself that were abandoned. No matter what I did, I couldn't find me a fox if my life depended on it. And one day I was setting up a gallery in Brights Grove, a gallery in the Grove, and we were in the vehicle. And my rule is no matter where I go, my camera goes with me. And I actually had left it in because I was like, I'm just going to the gallery to set up the show. And so I literally thought I'll just leave it. I got in the truck and my wife was like, oh, it's kind of cold out. She ran back in, got her jacket, and I was like, okay, I'll go get it. And I got it. And we basically got, I don't know if you're familiar, but Highway 40 before it turns into Churchill in Sarnia there. We're on the overpass and out pops two red foxes. And I think the vehicle was still in drive when I jumped out. If not, it was pretty darn close to it. And I got my first images of a fox. These aren't them, but it's funny because I went from, it was that spring that I finally photographed a fox, to that fall going up to Churchill and seeing four different types of foxes. And I think the count was somewhere around 24 or 25 foxes in total. So it was a really, really unique experience and one of my favorite animals to capture. I don't have it in here because some people might be don't like the ooey gooey stuff, but this guy here, I have photos of him just before this image where he had dispatched a ptarmigan and was carrying a breast in its mouth from the ptarmigan, and it looked like he had just got it out of the saran wrap at Loblaws. And then he went into the woods because there's a bunch of photographers here. He went into the woods, cached it, and then came back and kind of did this, paraded around all of the photographers. So it was really, really funny. Probably my favorite outside of the Arctic fox is the silver fox. Just a beautiful, beautiful animal. Beautiful animal that came right by us. They're super interested, but at the same time, they're still wild. And what I do love is, for the most part, up there, most wildlife is not habituated. Some of the red foxes are because they're in town and and they know where to get food. But that there is my people always say, what's your favorite thing about your trips up to Churchill? And when I arrived in October of 2024, I was told you're not going to see an Arctic fox. They're just super, super rare right now. Um, don't know why, whether it's they're being killed off by the red foxes or if it was rabies again, but nobody had seen any. I was there for better part of 3 weeks. And on the last day, I got up with my roommate. We went out and said we're going to spend the morning out. And the very first thing we see is this guy. We see a flash of white, and we're like, "Was that?" And then we look, and sure enough, it was an Arctic fox. And it was the first one I think that had been seen that season. And it was literally 6.5 hours before I hopped on that train to head home from my first trip up. Just an incredible, incredible species to see, because they are becoming more and more rare, and just such a beautiful animal in the Arctic. And again, another animal that completely brown in the summer and almost like a bluish white in the winter, fall. How are we doing for time, Angie?
It is just 8 o'clock now.
Okay. I
So,
will I'll fire through a couple more of these, and maybe what, 8, 10, we go to if there's any questions.
yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
That's beautiful. Look at that.
One of the other things up there was obviously the aurora. Most folks don't know, but 300 out of 365 days a year, the aurora is visible in Churchill, Manitoba. The only thing that would make it not visible is if it was a cloudy sky. I love this one because where that the CNSC, the center is, they have a lot of bird studies out at the center as well, and so they have, I believe they might even have, they have like a microphone that they've set up, and so they record all of the different birds that come near the center. Where the center is not only on the Churchill Wildlife Management Area, it's also on the Rocket Range National Historic Site. So back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the US and I believe Canada was involved as well. At that time, we're sending rockets up into the stratosphere and beyond, studying, I believe it was the Aurora Borealis and other things. And so out there, you see there's rockets. There's still some rockets that are kind of in the ground that never went off. There's also the old buildings that were there, but it happened to be in the summer when I was there. I'm heading down the road, and the way it was positioned, I was like, ah, that looks so cool. It's like the rocket's taken off, and it's the aurora that's fueling it. But it gets pretty intense up there. Aurora, like we've never seen it before. These here are like when you talk about aurora, it's in KP. So KP 1 to I think it's about KP 8. Down here, if we have KP 6, it's an explosion like this. Up there that night of that video that you just saw, I think that was at like a 1.5 or a 2. Uh, when it gets to 5, 6, 7 up there, it's mind blowing how beautiful it is. And it's not just something you see on the horizon, it's literally above you taking place. So it's a really, really cool aspect that I know we get to see in Northern Ontario as well. Um, call this one the Guardian. If you look at this, he's one of the ones that was sparring, one of the ones that was on the hill. Um, those those legs are the size of tree trunks. I think he's a definite four, probably 1,000 to 1,200 pounds, give or take. The size of their I forget what they call them, but their fangs there are about the size of your middle finger. I always say, I think it's this one or another one. But the Bare Necessities song always plays in my head when I see that one. The people in Churchill are incredible. This is Jim Baldwin. He is one of the buggy drivers. Buggy nine, buggy nine. He drives for the bear season and sometimes in the summer season. Really amazing guy. Uh, Dr. Douglas Clark. I spent 2 weeks with him. He is, I think, 30 years in, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's behavioral science between humans and polar bears. He individually, for science and research, has climbed in over 50 polar bear dens. Takes a lot of guts to do that. Um, Again, I love these images of people that were on the learning vacation, education vacation, they call them. Uh, Middle-aged, young kids, seniors, it doesn't matter. Everybody goes up and just enjoys the opportunities that you have up there. And there's always an opportunity for someone to be able to go and see. I can't express in these talks with folks just how incredible it is to see two enormous apex predators clash, and especially in the snow. When they hit each other and the snow just flies off, it's an unbelievable experience to be out on the tundra. Right behind me is the Arctic waters of Hudson Bay, and right in front of me, above them, is the boreal forest, and just an incredible place. Um, there's lots of murals around Churchill. It's kind of 50-50. Some residents like it, some don't. But a gal by the name of Cal Berteski, I think it is, she went up with Seawall. And they basically, in 2017, artists from all over the world came up, and they came together and painted murals all over the city. There are some local artists that have done some other stuff, but there's kind of two sides of the coin on that story. Some of the locals aren't happy because locals weren't involved with it. Some other locals were, kind of looking at it like, all these people came in, they bought up all the paint at the hard store, painted all this, and then left town, and we had no paint to paint our own houses. Where other people look at it and go, like, it's an incredible. They're murals, and they tell stories of the marine life and the polar bear and the different aspects of Churchill. So I always say it's up for your own interpretation. I try to support local artists, local stores, local people, and especially when I go and when I do these talks, I try to promote more the indigenous side of Churchill and the surrounding areas. But the art is absolutely fantastic. Um, Miss Piggy is a cargo plane that crashed in 1976. All three passengers that were on there, the pilot, the co-pilot, and I think there was one other person, survived. They just left it there, and that was one of the murals that they painted. And then people go and sign their names every time they're up there. That was the first time I got a shot of it. I had 5 seconds because the person driving the van yelled at me to get back in because right behind us was a polar bear. This image here is a local artist, Sandra Cook. She's an incredible artist, indigenous, and I absolutely love supporting anything that I can of hers. That shows you kind of that's a typical day in the fall and the winter. You know, below 20 below, and winds at 80 to 120 kilometers an hour. This image is in my gallery tour, and it's called Embers of Change. I have it printed on wood, actually, but it just kind of, with all the forest fires that we've been having, especially up that way, plus the aspect of it being in the boreal forest, just a really beautiful image. I think that has a lot to say in and of itself. So we're at about 8:10. I'll just flick through a couple more of these and open it up for any questions about myself, my journey, Churchill, polar bears, anything else that folks may have. Oh, this was actually when I went up in the fall, I knew I would see ptarmigans because that's basically the main bird up there in the winter. Obviously, they have snowies and I believe they have short ears up there as well. But this was a white rumped sandpiper, and I happened to see it, and the driver, which was Jim, uh, pulled over and was like, "What is he still doing here?" So everybody was kind of fascinated to be able to see it because he shouldn't. It was mid-November by that time. He shouldn't have been there, but that was a lifer for me and a really cool, unique bird to see. There he is. That's my very first bear. That's the one where whenever I post it on social media, I play the bare necessities in the background. All right. So I'll kind of end with that. I'll flick through a few more, and I'm sure Angie will have some closing remarks. But first and foremost, thank you. Uh, Thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for having me. Um, I'm just another guy that loves nature, loves birds, loves wildlife, um, and use my camera as a tool to tell the stories. And I hope in some form or fashion, I always say if you walk away and you've learned at least one thing, um, felt at least one thing, whether it's happiness, joy, sadness, whatever, at least some sort of a feeling is invoked, and that you again chase your dreams, and whatever that looks like, whatever age that looks like. Those are my big things, and most importantly, to spread awareness about what is happening in our planet, what is happening with our wildlife, what is happening in general when it comes to um, kind of the result of the warming climate. And I'm always here to answer any questions. I'm always here to um, share in other avenues and other groups. And I really thank you guys for this. Is again my first kind of webinar type deal. And I hope that the sound has been good, the video has been good. Aside from the sound on the video, I hope everything has kind of worked out for you folks. And yeah, I'll end it there and take a look at what folks are saying. And then again, please, any questions at all, I'd love to answer them.
Thank you so much, Shaun. Wow, that's yeah. Look at the I love the images. And so the whole idea of finding healing in photography, what do you think it is about that? And how do you think people can kind of bring that to their own lives?
I think um, I think it's again speaking to a group of folks who like birding, whether you capture them or you're just a bird watcher. Um, I think all of those types of faucets allow you to kind of switch off your brain to what is happening in life, like the everyday um, baloney. Um, whether it's work, whether it's marriage, whether it's kids, whether it's bills that got to be paid. I'm positive that whenever folks on here tonight, when you go out birding, you go out for a hike and you're looking for birds, um, it's the same feeling that I get when I'm out looking for the same birds, but to take a shot of them and to observe them. I think it just gives you a sort of an escape. But I think the most important thing and why doctors actually will prescribe walks in nature as medicine is because when you get out in nature and you take a moment to kind of get lost in it, and I think that's what happens when you're birding. I think that's what happens when you're hiking or when you're a photographer like me. You get lost in nature and you start to kind of almost, I notice my senses, right? I can smell more, I can hear things because I'm listening. And and I'm looking more intently at things, and complete squirrel side moment. But in my photography, one of the things I've started to do, I've got a series called Looking Closer, and it's going out and just taking shots of bark, taking shots of fungi, and even microorganisms, and snowflakes, and the edges of leaves, just looking closer. And I think that's what brings that healing, because I don't think healing can come in our lives until we're able to release and connect to something that's more grounded, connect to something that's bigger than we are. And I think when you're out birding, when I'm out shooting, you get connected and grounded in where you are and what you're looking at and observing. And I think that's, for me anyways, that's what brought a lot of my healing about.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's almost, for me, it's almost um, akin to gratitude.
Mm,
I'm looking at a bird. Like I can go out the same, like you said, if you're having a kind of a crummy day or whatever's going on, get out, and it doesn't even matter if it's just another robin or whatever it is. It totally takes your attention off of whatever was going on.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
And I think that's what I think we as humans need more. And that's why I love, the naturalist clubs, the
yeah,
OFO, the birding clubs, the outdoor clubs. Um, they all excuse me, lend to um, people coming together collectively and experiencing these things together. I think, again, where take it even a step further. Um, Not only are you having the chance to heal, but you're also building relationships and connections through things like OFO and different organizations when you're out together, uh, built on and in these grounded moments in nature.
yeah,
This was a big treat,
complete.
by the way, this photo. Um, Being down here, sorry to go back in that one too, but getting to see the cygnets, I've, because they're born up north, I never got to see the tundra swan cygnets before, and so it was really cool to get to find this family and kind of hang out with them for a couple of different days. Squirrel moment there, but yeah,
Yeah, love it. Well, I haven't been to Churchill. Um,
it's, I can't say. I mean, Uh, I've been to every province in this country. I've been to one of the territories. I've been to the subarctic, and I mean, aside from Newfoundland, I'm biased, but Newfoundland is by far the best place on planet Earth, in my humble opinion. Um, but Churchillians are a different breed. They're really unique people. There's a mixed bunch, right? You got people that kind of have two or three generations up there, because when the port was being built, when the railroad was being built, um, that was all at Hudson Bay. People were kind of migrating up there. But then you've also got the Cree, the Métis, the Saïse Dene. You've got all the First Nation and Indigenous communities up there as well, and it's just it's the only definition or explanation that I can give. It's like this collision kaleidoscope between ecosystems of nature and ecosystems of human beings. It's just a really, really, really cool place that has totally won my heart.
oh wow,
There's a few birds too that I
there's some
took this
nice.
summer.
Saw some winter-ready turnstones this week in Florida.
This was a big one for me. I had never seen a ready turnstone, and uh, got to see them. These guys, so funny enough, when I arrived August 14th, um, as soon as I landed, I basically got in the vehicle and went down to Polar Bear Alley because I wanted to see if there was polar bears. And when I got down onto the beach, it was littered with shorebirds. And so I was like, obviously you can't get out because there's still polar bears around, but I'm going crazy shooting all these lifers that I've never seen before in my life. And I went down the next day. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go back. I'm going to get so many more birds, and they were gone completely. Every bird was gone, and I'd never seen another one the entire time I was there.
Oh no, I love it. Oh,
A lot
there's a
of
bald
beagles up
eagle.
there too. Um, they have some pretty big nests up in that area.
Yeah. Um, any gerfalcon?
Yeah. So there was
Really?
one. Um, there was one actually. I think it was week before last. I think it was when I was up with this group. Um, there was one that was kind of off in the distance. At first, we thought it might have been. Uh, oh my goodness, Harrier. We thought it might have been a Harrier, but then Jim, the driver, had his binoculars and it was deer falcon, and I was like, "Ugh." It didn't land anywhere close for me to be able to get a look at.
Mm,
But
are you
yeah,
looking?
it's an incredible place. Like I say, from landscape to birds to mammals to animals, you just can't. And even the flora, like the this here is called fireweed, and the tundra in the fall and the winter and spring, you see the rock, right? And kind of the willows and the short bushes. But in the summer, the entire like fields of fireweed, fields of it, and it's this beautiful like red, pink, purpley color. And then they actually harvest it, and they make jam out of it. And so I've got a
I,
couple of cases of it,
I did
fireweed
that.
jelly.
I did that. I didn't like it though. It
I
tasted
loved
good.
it.
It had a very bitter aftertaste. I must have done something wrong with it when I
Well,
did
and
it.
I that was the thing, right? So like I had a couple of people that I brought up. One of the locals brought us a couple of jars, and it's if it's done the right way, it's very sweet. And
Oh,
if it's some turn out a little bit more bitter, but the really good ones, it's super sweet and like just a beautiful jam. And like up there, I mean, there's berries I hadn't even heard of that they have jams made out of up there. It's just an incredible place for everything.
whole different place. I love it. Well,
Yeah.
it's pushing 8:30. I guess we should.
Yep.
Wait, what's that? Is that a raven?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
That raven thought he'd be a pesky little bugger, and boy did he. He was up and around him all over the place, and only once did the bear try to swat at him, but it was this image is done real well. And it but it again, in this image, you literally see uh everything that is Churchill. In the foreground here, you've got spruce, the boreal forest. You've got the polar bear. You've got the raven, which is the northern bird, right? You've got the tundra right there. It's just it's one of those images that has everything of the north in it, and why I love the place so much.
Love it.
But yeah, I really appreciate it, and well, we're literally at the end right there.
Oh, aw. Well, Shaun, that's fantastic, and thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you
I
for having me.
uh, hope that if anybody else has questions, they
Yeah, please don't be shy.
put them out there. A lot of thank yous and comments like that from people there. So I know people have enjoyed this and appreciated it very much. So I guess we will leave it with that,
Awesome.
and I'll see everybody the first Wednesday of December. We have Jerry and Ellen Horak going to talk about their big year, their bigger year, and their biggest year yet to come. 3 big years that are different. So that'll be interesting. We'll see everybody then. Good night. Happy birding. Happy photography.
Thanks, folks. Take care.
I'm going to stop the recording there.